It's the weekend. Be good to yourself. It's Katz's Corner with Dr. Aaron Katz and Dr. Philippa Cheatham, where you can get simple, straightforward answers to your questions about health, from diet and supplements to lifestyle changes. To reach Dr. Katz and Dr. Cheatham, call 800-848-WABC. Now, live on 77 WABC, the chairman of urology at Winthrop University Hospital in New York, with co-host Philippa Cheatham, attending in urology at Winthrop University Hospital. Here is Dr. Aaron Katz.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to another live round of Katz's Corner here on WABC Radio in New York. I'm your host, Dr. Aaron Katz, and we're live on WABC at 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. Good morning, everyone, on this Sunday morning. Before we start the show, good morning, Philippa.
Good morning. How are you, Aaron?
I'm okay. I think that the entire the area, the region, the nation is obviously in deep sadness today, and I think before we start the show, we need to just take a moment and send our thoughts and prayers to all of those families, the ones that lost their lives this weekend. What a horrible tragedy! Absolutely,
it was very devastating news.
It's awful, and I don't know what we need to say here. It's just there's no explanation for such a tragedy. We're glad that you could join with us this morning here on Katz's Corner. We're going to change the venue around a little bit and talk about a very important condition that affects not only men but all of us, which is skin cancer. And here to help us, we've invited wonderful guests that are live with us in the studio this morning. And if you have a question about skin cancer, it's 1-800-848-9222. Our wonderful guests, Maggie and Jack Begain, they have a fund, the Molly Begain Foundation. If you're interested in this fund, in the society, it's mollysfund.org. As well as Maggie and Jack Begain, we have a medical oncologist from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center who has done a fellowship in the area of melanoma research. Her name is Dr. Margaret, another Maggie, Callahan, and she has done a lot of work in the area and will talk to us about skin cancer prevention and the role of some of the novel therapies for advanced melanoma. Let's first talk to Maggie and Jack Begain, the founders of the Molly's Fund. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, and thanks for being with us. Tell us about your story. Tell us about why that you decided to start this foundation.
Well, when our daughter Molly was diagnosed with advanced melanoma and subsequently passed in 2000, of course, as parents, we were devastated, and we wanted to do something to protect other parents from going through such a horrific tragedy. So we knew how important prevention and education were in this field. And based on our lack of knowledge at the time, we hoped to help other parents educate their families about the dangers of skin cancer and ultimately melanoma. Our focus has been on education and prevention. And with that in mind, we have developed programs for schools, specifically a DVD that's about 15 minutes long that has been written by educators, health educators of New York State, and we have been able to pass this through health teachers, not only in New York State but throughout the nation. Accompanied with it is a teacher's guide, which will allow teachers not only to show the DVD, but to do follow-up lessons.
And tell us a little bit about Molly and how she was detected and diagnosed. What happened to her?
Well, she was a very energetic, athletic, outgoing young lady. She was a sophomore in college, and unfortunately, we didn't know about moles, and she had a mole that was high on her thigh that was left undetected.
How old was she, Maggie?
She was 20 years old. And when she called me, she was at school in Arlington, Virginia. She said, "Gee, I have a very unusual mold, and it's bleeding." As I said, "Come home." Well, we went to a dermatologist. I wasn't alarmed. I never knew about melanoma. And right away, we were sent to Sloan Kettering, and subsequently she underwent 6 months of extensive chemotherapy and surgeries, and passed away in November of that year.
And was Molly fair-skinned? I mean, was her skin the kind of skin that we now know is at increased risk of developing melanoma? And was there any family history of melanoma? At
that time, there was no family history, but she was fair. She was blonde, freckled, and
had she spent a lot of time in the sun in her younger years?
She had probably had average sunburns, but as she grew older, she wanted to protect herself because a lot of my friends were golfers. And she said, "I'm recognizing that a lot of your friends, Mom, have leathery-looking skin, and I want to use that sunscreen." So, the damage was probably done when she was younger. But I think that what we know now, if we had known about a suspicious mole, we would have sought out more medical attention.
And it was 12 years, I think, since Molly was diagnosed, and there's been a huge improvement in what we know about melanoma in the last 10 years. I mean, you said very clearly that 10 years ago there was very little education for people out there.
Right. I didn't even know the word.
Let's hear from our doctor in the audience in the studio this morning, Dr. Maggie Callahan. She's an MD PhD, and she is at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and specializes in melanoma. Many of us have these moles on our skin. What is it about a particular mole that, if you're looking at your skin today, would say, "Oh wow, this is suspicious, that this is concerning"? Is there anything about that particular area?
Sure, yeah, and I think here we can give some great credit to Molly's Fund in terms of their educational materials in helping people out there understand what to be suspicious about. But of course, if you are suspicious, seeing your doctor is never the wrong answer. One of the guidelines that we use is this ABCD a reminder to give us some idea about what to look for, where A stands for asymmetry, so something that's not symmetrical. B stands for borders, irregular borders. C stands for colors or variegations in colors. And the other thing to look for is changes over time. So moles that evolve or change or look different, start bleeding, that's another change to be on the lookout for.
Well, what about the size of the mole? Does that matter if it's because Molly's, how big was that one?
I'd say it was about the size of a thumbnail.
Right. Well, that's not.
It was small, but it wasn't. It was about that size.
Yeah.
I think hers was in a location. It was high in her thigh that she really didn't notice. I think if you had a mole on your face or your hands, in terms of a self-exam, you would see that immediately.
Yeah, so size does, if it's a big lesion, that's more worrisome, or because this was small, right?
So I think size is not an absolute one way or the other. Changes, I think, are the most concerning thing we look for.
Yeah.
And Jack, you gave us a really helpful leaflet this morning when you came into the studio about these warning signs to look for, the A, B, C, D, E, and they're very thoroughly and clearly covered on the website mollysfund.org. Can you tell us a little bit about who you distribute these leaflets to, or how people can get hold of one of these leaflets if they're concerned about skin cancer?
Yes, thank you. We distribute them to hospitals such as Winthrop Hospital, where Dr. Katz is from. We distribute them to colleges across the country, high schools. We run a number of symposiums, educational symposiums for schools as well as patients, families of patients. on Long Island specifically.
And when you go into schools, I mean, a lot of people think that cancer is a disease of older people, and Molly was so young, she was only in her 20s. How do you get the message across to school children that this is a disease that can affect young people as well as older people?
Well, we thought the best time to go to speak with children would be in the middle school time frame. And we've created a video which is fairly upbeat. It's not very graphic. And they see this video, and they come out of the video with a smile on their face, but they also become aware of how to examine yourself, what to look for. We also bring a local dermatologist into the meeting. It's an assembly, typically, that we go to various schools and try to get the principals to get an assembly for that grade. We'll speak for a few minutes, show this upbeat video, and then have a dermatologist answer questions and pass out hats and sunscreen to the children that are asking the questions.
When you go into the schools, have children heard of the word melanoma before you talk about it?
I would say for the most part, no. But one of the follow-up programs that we do with the nurses is to have a letter sent to the parents of all the children that attend the assembly, explaining what they learned that day. And I've had many people come up to me in town saying, my kid came back and told me all about the event that they attended today, and he or she thought they learned something very important. I
was watching the public service announcement on your website, and it was a very moving story about a young girl who had been diagnosed with melanoma, and she said that had she not known about Molly's Fund, she would never have thought to question a mole on her body that she didn't even think was suspicious.
And we've heard a lot of that, Doctor, and we think we've saved many lives over the years.
But it really does require a thorough examination by a dermatologist. I mean, I'll tell you, my own experience is you need to, because you can't examine your entire body. You have it on your back and the back of your neck. It could be anywhere. In fact, I had a patient, Philippa, that had a lesion on his scrotum that was a melanoma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And thankfully, we were able to biopsy it. It showed a melanoma, and he had it removed, and he was okay. But it does require, and I was going to ask Dr. Callahan, a thorough dermatological examination, which means you need to strip down and get completely nude. How often do you recommend that people do this as a baseline? Because people say, colonoscopy, get at the age of 50. We talk about PSAs here every week, men at the age of 50, but when should people actually go to that dermatologist, take all their clothes off, and have a thorough, front, back, top to down examination of their body for these things?
Sure. That's a great question. And if you haven't had a visit to your dermatologist, this might be a good reminder to make that call. How often your dermatologist needs to see you is something that's going to depend a little on what your dermatologist finds and what some of your risk factors are. It's not uncommon for our patients to have yearly checkups with the dermatologist. Also, though sometimes patients with high risk factors or other findings are seen more often.
I don't know what you think, Aaron. If I had a mole that I was concerned about, I wouldn't think twice about getting a dermatological opinion, but I've never thought about going for a preventative full body checkup without any concern at all, and I think that's probably a very clear message for people.
Yeah, I think it is important to get out there, and because these things can be detected early and then treated and prevent any further problems from happening. You're listening to Katz's Corner here. I'm so glad you could join us on this Sunday morning. We're in the studio with us is Maggie and Jack Begain, founders of the Molly's Fund. That's www.mollysfund.org, as well as a medical oncologist who specializes in dermatological lesions, melanoma, Dr. Maggie Callahan, MD, PhD, from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. So, next week I'm going to go on vacation, and I'm going to go down to Florida, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I need a little time off. Who's doing the show? I'm not so sure yet. But I'm going to go to Florida, as many of us in the Northeast do, in this cold, time, and sit on the beach. And soak up the sun. That's why we go there. What recommendations do you make to people from the fund? Let's talk first for you guys. I'm going to go down there. And I go into the pharmacy, and you go to the skincare product. There's thousands of products. There's thousands of SPF. I have no idea what to buy or what to get before I go to the beach, during and after. What do you tell people?
Well, I tell people that you have to use sunscreen and recommended 30 UVA, UVB protection. FDA guidelines are coming out with new rules that manufacturers can't say waterproof. So the important thing is to reapply. And nothing less than a 30. Nothing less than a 30.
And will I get a tan if I use a 30 or higher? Because of course I want to come back to New York and have a little color, right? That's
Aaron, go for a spray tan.
Spray tan?
Spray tan. Spray tan. The only safe tan is a spray tan.
Really?
Now I know what to buy you for Christmas.
But that's chemicals and everything, isn't it?
No, they have. No. No.
Spray tan.
Spray tan.
You ever do that, Philippa?
I'm not going to tell you all my secrets on air.
All right, so more than 30.
More than 30. Sunglasses.
Sunglasses.
Sunglasses. Protective clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a hat. Especially if you have children now, they have bathing suits that are a little bit more longer, and they're treated with special SPF materials. So
I saw my baby niece actually in a photograph wearing one of these. Almost looks like a kind of full body
old-fashioned
outfit. Yes, but it's so difficult, isn't it? Because you go on holiday, the sun makes you feel so good, and it's like a drug. And if you're into sunbathing, it's a very difficult thing for people to give up. And I think particularly older people who were brought up and less aware of melanoma, so easy to think this is always something that will happen to somebody else.
Right. But I think that's why we want to change behaviors. And as parents or as role models, I think it's just so important to put that sunscreen on, put that hat on, and be aware of when we're out, reapplying that sunscreen.
And stay out of the midday sun, they normally say.
Absolutely.
All right, so I got to put clothes on the beach, a hat, sunglasses, SPF 30 and higher.
You can still have your pomegranate cocktail in the shade and be quite happy.
I hope to. So let me ask you, is skin cancer, Dr. Callahan, because now we're using a lot more of these sunscreens than we did, at least when I grew up. When I was a child, we'd just go to the beach. My mother wasn't, I don't think so, putting all of these SPF 30s. Is skin cancer, is it on the rise, the number of cases?
So it is. The incidence of patients, of people diagnosed with melanoma is rising. The most recent guidelines from 2012 estimate a little over 75,000 cases. Luckily, and I think in part because of great work like the Begains are doing in education and early detection, most of these are early skin cancers, early melanomas that can be treated with surgery and might just require follow-up with your doctor.
And you go to certain countries like Australia, they're very, very good at educating people because the incidence of skin cancer is so much higher over there.
That's true.
Now, a lot of people do get biopsies, and they're found to have these precancer or basal cell. That's different than what we're talking about today, right? That's a much different non-lethal form, almost like with prostate cancer. We have a lot of these cancers that we detect that we're calling cancer, but they're not really going to affect or spread or, see an oncologist for that. The garden variety ones, are they usually the ones that are just, the non-lethal, the basal cell?
Right. So melanoma is only one of several types of skin cancer, and it is the one that we worry about the most because of the potential for it to spread and become a lethal disease. Seeing your dermatologist, though, for any of these types of skin cancers is important.
When you see people in the office, do you see patients that present with very widespread disease without being aware of it, or is that normally something that comes much later?
We do occasionally see patients who are first diagnosed at a time when their disease is advanced.
And there's some new drugs that are out now, is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. The landscape for treatment of advanced melanoma has changed really dramatically in the last few years. In 2011, 2 new drugs were approved by the FDA, and that has generated a tremendous amount of excitement by expanding the options we have for treating this disease.
Now, that's only if the cancer that you had was a melanoma and that it spread. Is that right?
That's correct.
And where does it go? To the liver or to the bone, or where does it usually go?
Sometimes what we say is there are no rules for melanoma. It can spread to any number of areas, including the sites you mentioned, as well as additional sites.
Yeah. Well, this is, if you're just waking up, it's we have a wonderful show this morning talking about skin cancer, melanoma, a disease that affects many of us. How many actually cases are there each year in the United States of this?
Yeah, so the 2012 guidelines have given us some updated numbers, and the number of new cases is a little over 75,000.
Of melanoma.
Of melanoma.
Yeah, not just of all. What about all skin cancers? Do we know that? That's probably much higher, right?
I'm sure it's higher. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the number.
Jack?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that according to statistics, 1 in 5 people will experience some form of skin cancer.
And a bit like prostate cancer, we are seeing more numbers, but it's difficult to know, are we seeing more cancers, or are we just better at detecting them? Do you know whether for skin cancer, is it a bit of both?
I think we're being more vigilant, and I think that's why we're seeing more cancers. But 1 out of 5, that's frightening.
And you hear on the news about the ozone layer being depleted and about how that may increase the risk of skin cancer. I don't know if that's relevant or not. Do people ask you about that when you do your seminars?
Our opinion is yes, it does have some effect on it. And some statistics on melanoma, I believe it's 1 out of 65 will develop some type of a melanoma. So that's, scary statistics.
And what about, just getting back to the guys up here that go down for vacation and it's a cloudy day. Let's say they're on a cruise ship or on a beach, but they're going out, but they're now in a much warmer climate, but it's the sun rays aren't out, let's say, that day. Do you need to, let's say you want to spend the day on the beach, do you need to apply sunscreen on that particular day?
Absolutely. And
why is that?
Because of, the different layers, UV protection, it's necessary, as is if you were going skiing. I think a lot of people tend to forget that in high altitudes you're very prone to serious sunburns.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there too on days. You're a big skier too, Philippa. I mean, you do that when you go skiing?
I do, and in fact, you really feel it if you're up in the mountains skiing and you don't have your sunblock with you. You really feel it. Your face becomes very red and chapped, and you do get sunburn, and often you learn the hard way because you think when you're up there in the snowy mountains you're safe. I wanted to ask about black skin. We associate melanoma with fair-skinned people, and certainly, my dad would be the typical person to say, oh, I tan easily, I've got this, nice olive brown skin, I don't need to put sunscreens on. I hope you're listening, Dad, from the UK. What about darker-skinned people and olive-skinned Mediterranean skin? I mean, they're still at risk, aren't they?
Absolutely. I don't know how many people know that Bob Marley passed away from melanoma.
I didn't know that. No, I didn't.
And I think people of color, and Maggie can, help me out with this, tend to get it, maybe in their hands, their feet, under their nails, in different places. And because they are not maybe thinking, as you mentioned your dad was, they don't tend to go and see a dermatologist until after it's presented.
Right.
So there is a concern. There's a definite concern of people, not just with black skin, but people with olive and darker skins.
Maggie?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Most people who develop melanoma melanoma on the skin, on their trunk, on their arms, on their legs, but there are subtypes of melanoma called acral melanomas that can come on your hands, the palms of your hands or the soles of your feet. There are also rare types of melanoma that can be in your eye, uveal melanoma, and on mucous membranes. So melanoma is a more widespread
And as you get older, I mean, skin becomes more pigmented anyway, doesn't it? It must be quite difficult for older people to know whether skin changes that they see are just part of the normal aging process, normal pigmentation that you see, or whether it's a suspicious lesion.
Yeah, and I think going back to the education component of this, having a good relationship with your doctor, your dermatologist, someone who knows you, is a great component of that.
I mean, one of the things I find most upsetting is when you see young children exposed in the sun without sunscreen or proper shades on strollers. I mean, their skin is so vulnerable, isn't it, to these skin changes?
Do you make any recommendations for dermatologists? I know that you're based out of Garden City, which is our home at Winthrop. Are there specific dermatologists that you recommend there at Winthrop Hospital, or is it just more of just a number of doctors that are available in the area? Jack?
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to. We don't know all of the doctors in the area,
right?
And we're not qualified to judge their credentials. Maggie and I use a Dr. Wolfen, whom we think is very professional and good in Great Neck.
Usually we say, I'm sorry, Jack. Usually we say, board certified.
Right.
I mean, American Academy of Dermatology. They have a wonderful website, and they offer free skin screenings in May, the month of May. So I would suggest to your radio audience to go to their website and avail themselves of that service.
And the key is getting people to the dermatologist in the first place, isn't it? Is the awareness. I think mollysfund.org for any of the listeners out there. Go to their website. It's fantastic. Very useful information on prevention and education. Aaron?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Philippa. Thanks, Maggie and Jack Begane, for coming in. That is, again, the mollysfund.org. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Callahan, as well.
Dr. Callahan, for coming in and spending your time. All three of you were excellent in educating our listeners about skin cancer treatment and, most importantly, prevention. Tune in every Sunday. This is Dr. Aaron Katz.